Hello and welcome back to lesson 5. We're going to be looking more at multi-digit multiplication today, and our thinking question from the last lesson is, when do you find that it is worth your time to make a ballpark estimate? For me personally, I find that it is most worth my time when I'm doing any multiplication with a number that is 3 or more digits. And that's because at that point it becomes really easy to lose track of numbers and the place value. And so if I have a ballpark estimate, then if I accidentally miss a number when I'm doing the actual equation, then I'm going to be able to catch that by comparing it to my ballpark estimate. So like I said, today is lesson 5, multi-digit multiplication part 2. So we're going to be looking at what we call the traditional algorithm or the standard algorithm. And it's basically using partial products, but it's putting it into one concise algorithm that doesn't require quite as many steps. But it's important to know the partial products because that helps you to understand how this algorithm works. And if you understand how it works, then you're a lot more likely to catch yourself when you're making an error. Or so you just don't forget a step. So today you'll be needing paper and a pencil as usual, and that's it, because we do not use calculators with this multiplication today. And we're going to start with doing a 2-digit number times a 1-digit number. Just like in the last video, we're going to start by finding the ballpark estimate. So that means that you're going to pause the video and find the ballpark estimate. My estimate was from 70 times 8, and I found that that was 560. So that's approximately where the answer should end up. Now I'm going to demonstrate this algorithm for you, completely me just walking you through the steps, and you're just going to watch, and then we'll start to do some together, and then you'll be able to do some on your own. So with the traditional algorithm, you always start by multiplying the ones place times the ones place. So that's 8 times 7. 8 times 7 is 56. So I'm going to put the 1 place down. So in the number 56, I'm going to put down the 6 because that's in the ones place. I'm going to carry the 5, which is secretly 50, and I'm going to do 8 times 6. I'm not actually doing 8 times 6, though. You know that. I'm doing 8 times 60, but we're just going to say 8 times 6 to make it a little bit easier because, again, remember, we're consolidating the partial products algorithm to make the standard algorithm a little bit easier. So 8 times 6 is 48, and then I'm going to add in this 5. Now, remember, it's not actually 6 times 8 equals 48. It's really 8 times 60 equals 480. And then I'm really adding in 50, which is going to be 530. But remember, we're doing 48 plus 5, so that's 53. And I don't have to carry that 5 because this 5 right here, because there's no other place value for me to carry it to. So I'm just going to write down 53, and that's my answer. It's as simple as that. So 536 is close to 560, which was my ballpark estimate, so I'm good. Okay, so up on the board I have the steps of the traditional algorithm, and I'm going to walk you through them step by step and show you how that works conceptually. So the first step is to always multiply the ones place by the ones place. So that works just like you'd expect it to. And then you write the number in the ones place and carry any tens if necessary. So here we did 7 times 8, which equals 56. I carried the 5, and I put down my 6. Now it's going to get a little bit trickier. Multiply the ones by the tens place. So we're multiplying the ones by the tens place. That's going to be 48. We also said we can think of it as 60 times 8 equals 480. You add in any number that you carried over. So I carried over the 5, really a 50, and so that gets me 53. You write down the number in the tens place. And again, we had to carry over that 5 into the hundreds place. We're going to try this one together now. So pause the video and make your ballpark estimate. My ballpark estimate is 160 because I did 40 times 4. Now we're going to go through this step by step together. So the first step is to multiply the ones place by the ones place. So 9 times 4. You're going to, first of all, write down this problem on your paper and then multiply the ones place. put down whatever is in the ones and then carry anything that's in the tens. Pause your video and do that now. So 9 times 4 is 36, so I put down my 6, which was in the ones place, and I carried the 3 because that actually represents a 30. Now you're going to multiply the ones place by the tens place. Pause your video and do that now. So you should have gotten 12, and then you have to add in this carried over number. So 12 plus 3 equals 15. Now remember, that's actually 4 times 30 equals 120. 120 plus 30 equals 150. And look, that's the equivalent of 150 if we look at our place value. So the answer is 156, which is very close to 160, which was our ballpark estimate. Great. You're going to do this one entirely on your own now. So find your ballpark estimate and then solve the problem. If you need to go back in the video to review what the steps are, go ahead and do that. Pause the video now and solve it. Your answer should be 252, and you should have found that that was pretty close to your ballpark estimate. Mine was 280, so that works. And you should have solved it by saying 6 times 7 is 42. So you brought down your 2 and you carried the 4, which is actually a 40. Then 7 times 30, or 7 times 3 is 21, plus 4 is 25. So 252 is your answer. Now we're going to move on to 2 digits by 2 digits, and it gets a little bit trickier because we have to add in a step. I'll show you how to do it first, and I'll explain the steps along the way. So I'm going to make my ballpark estimate. I'm going to do 80 times 30, and that's going to be 2,400. Now I'm going to go to my actual multiplication problem. So I'm going to, just like before, I'm going to start with my ones times my ones. So 7 times 1 is 7. I don't have to carry anything, that's nice. And then I'm going to do my ones times my 10. This is just like the partial products. Remember how I would do each part of the number times each part of the other number? So 7 times 1 we already did. Now we're doing 7 times 80, or 7 times 8. 7 times 8 is 56. I just write that down. Now, there's a step in here that lots and lots of people forget, but that's because they don't understand why they do it. And it's because we have to put a placeholder 0 right here. That's because now we're going to move on to multiplying the tens place times each number in, or each digit in the other number, in the other factor. So what I'm really saying when I multiply these two numbers is 20 times 1. Well, 20 times 1 is 20. So there's my 20. If I hadn't put that 0 here, and I had just written my 2, that would say that 20 times 1 is 2, and that's not true at all. We don't want to do that. So we have to put our placeholder 0. It's so important that you remember to put your placeholder 0 as soon as you start multiplying by the tens place. So you do 20 times 1, or 2 times 1 we shorten it to. And then we do 20 times 80, or 2 times 8. Again, we can shorten it. And that's 16. And that works because if you think about it, 20 times 8 is 1,600. Look, this is in the 1,600 place value. So it's 1,600. Now, this is a little bit like partial products because we have two parts of the product. We have the part where we multiply the ones place by the ones in the tens, and then the tens place by the ones in the tens. So now we have to add together those two partial products. And my answer is 2,187. That's really close to 2,400, so I'm pretty confident in my answer. Let's do one together now. Pause the video and make your ballpark estimate. My ballpark estimate is 3,200 because I changed the 43 to a 40 and the 75 to an 80, and that got me 3,200. So now I'm going to go on to multiply. So go ahead and write that multiplication problem on your paper. And once you've done that, we're going to start by multiplying the ones place times the ones place. So go ahead, pause the video, and do that and carry any number that needs to be carried. Okay, so 3 times 5 is 15. So I put down my 5 because that's in the ones place, and I carried my 1, which actually represents a 10. Now I'm going to do my ones place times my tens place. So that's actually 5 times 40. So do that and then add in the number that we carried and write it down as it needs to be written. Pause the video and do that now. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 1 is 21. Now, I'm going to be going down to multiplying by the tens place. What does that mean? It means I need my placeholder 0. So go ahead and put a placeholder 0 in the ones place underneath your first partial product. Another helpful thing you might want to do, any numbers that you carried from the ones place, cross it off, because we may have to carry more numbers and we don't want to get confused. So now we can multiply our tens place by our ones place. So go ahead and do 7, really 70, 7 times 3. Carry any numbers that you need to. So 7 times 3 is 21. Really, we're saying 70 times 3 is 210. So I put the 1 down to represent the 10. Look, that's a 10. And then I carried my 2, which represents a 200. Now I'm going to do 70 times 40, or 7 times 4. So pause your video and do that along with adding in what you carried over. So 7 times 4 is 28, plus 2 is 30. So what I really did was 70 times 40 equals 2,800. And then I added in 200, and that got me 3,000, which is represented by this number right here. Now I'm going to add together my two partial products, so pause your video and do that now. And your answer should be 3,225, which is incredibly close to the ballpark estimate, so I'm pretty spot on sure that I'm correct. Go ahead and pause the video and try to do this one on your own. If you need to go back, watch how we did the last one, absolutely do that. And don't forget to make your ballpark estimate first. For this one, my ballpark estimate is approximately 3,000. And then I went through and I found my answer of 3,168, which is very close to my estimate, so I feel pretty good about it. Now, just to walk you through the steps that I took, just to make sure that you got them correct, I did my ones place times my ones place. That was 18, so I put my 8 down and carried the 1, which is crossed off because I had to cross it off after I did my ones place. So 6 times 3 is 18, plus that 1 is 19, so I wrote my 19 down. Then I put my placeholder 0 because I'm moving to the tens place now. So my placeholder 0, and then I did 9 times 3 is 27. I put down the 7, carried the 2, 9 times 3 is 27 again, plus 2 is 29, brought down my 29, then I added them together, and I got 3,168. It's also really important that you don't accidentally multiply these. Sometimes people do that. I almost did it when I was solving this one because you're so used to multiplying up here. But remember, you got two partial products here. So you need to put those two partial products together to find the final product. You're not multiplying the two partial products. Pause the video and solve this after you find your ballpark estimate. Go ahead and do that. My ballpark estimate was 1,500 and the answer is 1,512. Really close, so I feel confident that it's correct. And what I did was I multiplied 4 times 8 equals 32. I put down my 2 and carried my 3, which is now crossed off. I did 4 times 2 is 8, plus 3 is 11, so I brought down my 11. Then I had to put my placeholder 0, really important. And then I did my tens place times my ones place, so 5 times 8 equals 40. Now 40 has a 0 in the ones place, I still put it down. Just like when you're doing addition, you still have to put that placeholder 0. And then I carried the 4. I did 5 times 2 equals 10, plus 4 equals 14. And the answer, when I added them together, was 1,512. We're going to try one that's going to be a little bit trickier now. It's going to be 3 digits times 3 digits. That means we're going to have to add in an additional step, or a couple of additional steps. But I think now that you understand the concept behind what we're doing, you'll be able to add those steps in pretty easily. But I will walk you through them, no worries. We're going to start with our ballpark estimate, so pause the video and make your estimate. My estimate is 300,000 because I did 600 times 500. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the same way I have been starting. And that's by multiplying my ones place times my ones place. So 2 times 8 is 16. Carry my 1. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. Don't have to carry anything. 2 times 6 is 12. I'm just going to put that down. Now I'm going to be going to my multiplying by my tens place. You know what we have to do when we do that? We have to put a placeholder 0 because we're multiplying by 10. So 10 times 8 is 80, or 1 times 8 is 8. Look, there's our 80. 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 6 is 6. Now, here's where it's going to get a little bit tricky. We're going to our hundreds place now. If you think about why we put a placeholder 0 here, because we're multiplying by 10, now we have to put 2 placeholders. Because we're multiplying by technically 100. We're technically saying 500 times 8 is 4,000 instead of just 40. So that means, so 5 times 8 is 40, right? I'll just show that over here. But that's not actually what we're saying. We're saying 500 times 8 equals 4,000. So I have to put down a 0 because that's in my ones place. And then I carry the 4 up here, which actually represents the thousands place. Now I do 500 times 10, or we shorten it by saying 5 times 1. It's 5. Then I have to add in the 4. So 5 plus 4 is 9. Technically 9,000. And then we're going to do hundreds place times the hundreds place. 500 times 600 is going to be a huge number. So we shorten it and we say 5 times 6 is 30. So I'm going to write down my 30. And now I'm going to add them together just like before. That needs to be here. Need to carry 1 there. 316,416. That's pretty close to our estimate, so I feel confident in the answer. And now we're going to go on to one more practice problem before we go on to a word problem. And you are going to solve this one on your own. So do your ballpark estimate and then go through each step. Do not forget your placeholder zeros. Remember, when you go to the multiplying by the hundreds place, you have to put 2 placeholder zeros to represent the 2 zeros in 100. Pause the video and do that now. All right, so my ballpark estimate was 110,000, which is very close to my answer that I got, which was 109,464. And I remembered my one placeholder 0 for the tens place and 2 placeholder zeros for the hundreds place. And I just went through and I multiplied each number by the other numbers. And then I added them together, my partial products, and I got my answer. We're going to try one word problem now. And you're going to solve it using the traditional algorithm. So Yolanda owns a bakery and she is in charge of telling the bakers how many cupcakes to make each day. On Tuesday, there are 56 orders for 1 dozen, which is 12 cupcakes, and there are 239 orders for 2 dozen, or 24 cupcakes. How many cupcakes will the bakers need to make for Tuesday? So pause your video and try to solve that now. You're going to have a couple of different steps you'll have to go through. The final answer is that bakers are going to need to make 1,896 cupcakes. And I got that by multiplying 56 times 12, because there's 56 orders of 12, and then 239 times 24, because there's 239 orders of 24 cupcakes. So I multiplied each of those independently, and then I added those 2 together, because that tells me how many cupcakes for those orders, and that tells me how many cupcakes for those orders, and then I add those 2 together, and I get the final number of cupcakes that I need. If you did not get the correct answer, go through each step of the multiplication. You can take a look at what I did and see if it matches, and if it's probably just an issue with some math somewhere. Great work today with lots of numbers. We're now going to take a look at the thinking question, which we'll answer at the beginning of the next lesson. And how does an understanding of the traditional algorithm help you? So you understand how it works now. How does understanding that help you? All right, bye-bye.